Alright guys, I'm Billy from Blue Sky Endurance. I'm one of the coaches at Blue Sky. I've been doing tries for 11 or 12 years now, so I've had plenty of time to make a lot of transition mistakes in order to learn how to properly do a transition. I've done somewhere around 60 or 70 tries at this point, so it's a lot of just practice, and that's what's going to be the most important part of getting a good transition down, is practicing. It's still something that I need to practice when I'm actually doing my workouts. So it's something you never just kind of like leave to the side, because you can win a race in transition and you can very easily lose a race in transition. So we're just going to go over the kind of the basics of what you want to have set up, things along those lines, so that when you are in your race, you can be confident when you enter that transition, and you can be confident leaving transition knowing that you did everything properly, correct, and that you're set to go for the rest of your race. So first thing, when you show up to your transition, you want to make sure when you're putting your bike down that you are racking your bike so that your front wheel is on the side that you're going to set your bag. So you'll notice there's going to be poles or there's going to be racks. You're going to set your stuff to the left or right of your front wheel of your bike. So your front wheel is going to be hanging like this. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and just put my bike to the side, because other than that, and setting up next to where your front wheel is, you're not going to need your bike for the rest of your transition until you get to, obviously getting onto the bike.
We put our own bike on the rack?
Yes. Yep. When you show up, you'll put your own bike on the rack. You'll do everything. You'll set up everything by yourself. Say it again?
It hangs by the seat?
I believe they'll have poles so you can hang it by the seat. So usually it'll just be kind of hooking it by the seat right here. Some people have a seat they can hook it from the back, but it's much easier. It's easy just to set it up and hang it by the seat right here. And in that sense, you'll notice the rear wheel's in the air, the front wheel's on the ground. You're going to want to have everything set up next to your front wheel. That way you can run. When you run over to it, you can do everything you need to. And then when you're ready to get off onto your bike, you'll just be able to kind of grab your bike out from underneath the pole and get off and start running. But I'm going to set this over right here. We'll pretend that's hanging right now. And I also brought with me a transition bag. I didn't bring a bucket, you'll notice. You'll see a lot of people with buckets trying to choose to sit on a bucket. They're really useful to the person who's using them, and they're a really big pain to anybody else who's around you. So I usually tell people not to use the bucket, just because when you set up the bucket, you've now made it so you're taking up a lot more space than you would had you just set your stuff next to it. But let's go ahead and we'll start pulling out kind of the goodies that you'll need for your race. So, a towel. Anybody want to tell me what the towel's for?
To stand on.
Put your stuff on and to stand on. You don't dry off with your towel. You're just wiping your feet. So let's say if transition's in the grass and now you have grass all over your feet and you don't want that in your bike shoes. When you set your towel next to where your bike is, you'll come running up from transition out of the water, and you can just step on it real quick to get the stuff off your feet. Or if you let's say if you ever do a try that's in gravel or anything like that and you really need to wipe your feet, go ahead and do that, but it's not to get yourself completely dried off after the swim. The bike will take care of that. While you're riding, you'll get dried off real fast. But we'll go ahead and get set up. The idea is setting everything up from the start of the race. So we know for the swim, you're going to need all that stuff out of transition, because you use that prior to ever entering transition. So make sure you don't leave your goggles in transition. Make sure you don't leave suit, anything like that you would need for the swim in transition. So, but when you have to go through and you think, okay, when I come out of the swim, what's the first thing I'm going to have to do when I get to transition? You get on stuff ready for your bike. So if you're biking using just your regular running shoes, you'll want to make sure you have your running shoes off. So I'm going to set my running shoes down. If you're somebody who's going to use bike shoes, that's the other option. I know a lot of people aren't ready for clipping in yet. That's what this would be for. If you are going to be clipping in, then obviously you would just set this in the place of where you're setting your running shoes. And then on top of your running shoes, you're going to have your helmet. And I say that because the helmet is the first thing you grab when you come out of transition. So when you are done and coming out of the water, the helmet's the first thing you put on. You are not allowed to touch your bicycle until you have this helmet on and strapped. Because of that, I'm going to put it on top of everything else I could possibly need for the bike, knowing that this has to be on my head and strapped before I can even touch the bike. So I have my helmet now on top of my shoes. And then the only other thing that I can think of that I need for my bike is if I'm wearing sunglasses, I'll have sunglasses. So I'll have that set up. So I have my bike stuff set up. Now I have to think, okay, when I'm done my bike, what's the next thing I'm going to do? I'm going to take all of the bike stuff off, but the helmet has to be the last thing to come off. So when you come running back through with your bike and you hang that bike back up, you're going to keep that helmet on until that bike is done being touched. Reason being, in some races, it's not as stringent. In other races, like if you ever decide to do some of the bigger USAT races, some of the local or the smaller Ironman races, they will ding you for at least a 2-minute penalty if you're touching your bike without your helmet being clipped. And so it's just good practice. If she tries your first race or if you're doing any other races, it's good practice to have that helmet clipped and on until you are done with your bicycle. The moment you're done touching your bike the rest of the race, go ahead, take your helmet off. Helmet comes back off. But right now we're just in the initial setup when you first walk in. So the idea is you're going to have all of your bike setup stuff first. And now that I know I have all my bike stuff set up, I can set up my run stuff. Now in this situation, my shoes are my run stuff. What else I need is I'll go ahead and get out my race belt. So a race belt is very useful in that you don't have to pin the race number onto yourself. This makes it so that when you're ready to do your run, you can easily just slip it on, clip it, and you're off and going. Now you don't have to mess with pins and you don't have to wear this when riding your bike. So that's why I'm going to have it just set up with my run stuff. But knowing that this is very light and can easily blow away, I'm just going to go ahead and tuck it underneath my shoes for right now. And if I have a water bottle or anything like that set up in transition, I might put that on top of it as well. Because if you put your shoes on for your bike, it'd be exposed. Because you don't want to come back and have things just missing. So you'll also notice right now, so I have everything set up basically for my entire race. Because for my run, I'm going to be wearing those shoes. I'm going to grab that race belt. I'm going to be off and going. I'll already have my sunglasses on. Everything is really nice and tight right here. You'll notice things aren't spread all around. You want to have everything as close and compact as possible. If I had my helmet over here, just sitting off in front, thinking, okay, I know that's the first thing I'm going to grab. I'll put my helmet there. Any other person who's coming and running through transition accidentally could kick that helmet. Now that helmet could be 10 yards that way. And I say that out of experience, not from myself, but I have several friends who have lost their helmets during transition.
It's over.
Yep, and then you're spending all that time looking for your helmet because not only is it a roll away, now it's in somebody else's transition stuff, and you have to assume, okay, that one's my helmet, because a lot of people have the exact same helmet. It's a generic black helmet is real popular. I have one that's not generic and black, so it's much easier to find. But you want to make sure that if somebody would have to go out of their way in order to come and kick or move your stuff, nobody's really going to plan to do that. It's usually a very loving, inviting sport, so nobody's going out of their way to mess with your things. So assume everything's pretty much an accident. If your helmet's gone 5 feet, it's probably because you set it up too close to where people are going to be running through. So everything's nice, close, and compact. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to move this transition bag completely out of the way. Any backpack will do. Yeah, anything that carry all of your stuff. But I'm not going to leave it with my stuff because now I've taken up so much space. If I were to leave my bag with my stuff, I'm going to either have somebody to take this for me and put it in a car. Then the idea is, what do you do with your keys? Well, thankfully, keys are small enough you can put them right on your towel that you're set for the rest of the race. Or some races will have designated spaces that you can put your bags. But my suggestion is usually just put it back in your car because you're not going to be needing it till the very end. But let's go ahead and pretend my car is over here. And that's where it is. So now everything is set up. Now prior to the race, I'm going to roll through my mind of everything that I'm going to need. I want to make sure my goggles aren't in transition because I'm going to need those before I ever start. My cap's not in transition. Going to need that before I ever start. But When I get out of the water, when I come out of the water, first thing I'm going to grab is my helmet. I'm going to go ahead and just practice going through it. The reason why I'm practicing is I'm making sure that my helmet's not already clipped. It's really hard to put on a helmet when it's already clipped, and it's one of those small things that happen in transitions that if your helmet's already clipped, you're already fumbling because you just came sprinting out of the water. You're probably cold. Your fingertips are not going to be quite as good. So trying to get everything unclipped and getting everything ready is a little bit harder when you're in your race. Same thing with the helmet tension, things like that. You and I have everything pretty much preset so that you can slip your helmet on and clip it as quickly as possible. The next thing is setting up how you're going to do your shoes. If you're somebody who wears socks, having your socks ready to go. If you're somebody who wears socks that are specific to your feet, making sure they are in the correct shoe. It's not very comfortable to run with a left-footed sock on a right foot, things like that. So making sure that those are quick and easy to put on. My suggestion is always just keep them in your shoes because once again, it's something that if there's a big gust, a sock can blow away. So making sure that they're set. If I know the next thing I'm going to put on are my shoes. Shoes that are either one of two things. One, easy to slip in, like I was able to do with here. Or two, you can purchase a pair of lock laces, which we usually suggest as well. If you're somebody who needs to have really tight shoes or somebody who feels they need to tie their shoes. Lock laces are basically just bungee cords that go around your shoes that replace your laces. And it makes it so you can open them up wide, and when you slip your foot in, it tightens down real hard. So I have my shoes nice and set. Third thing, let's go ahead and grab my sunglasses, put those on, and then I would get my bike off of the hook. I'm doing this because it's the motion that you'll probably need to do to get your bike out from under, and then you're off and running. And then you're coming back from your bike. I'm running back up. I'm going to hook my bike back up. It's the first thing I'm going to do. So now my bike is set. My sunglasses can come off. My helmet can come off. Now if you're going to use your sunglasses for running, obviously keep them on. But I'll grab my sunglasses. I've got my race belt. And I'm just going to start running now. I don't need to clip this in transition. The idea is the same thing. When you're standing still with all that adrenaline, everything moves a little bit shaky. And so the idea of being shaky and trying to clip this in transition, it takes a little bit longer. Now, if you were to just grab this and start running, your heart rate starts to settle. Everything starts to move correctly. You can put this on as long as you're showing this while you're leaving transition and your number is shown. They know, okay, number 551 is leaving the transition area. Everything's good. You can go ahead and clip this while you're running. And that way, you don't have to spend all that extra time to get the small things actually end up being what takes up the most time. If you can do things like take this and put it on while you're running, then you're already getting your heart rate back, your pace back, you're almost settling back down so you can continue your race. Same thing with sunglasses. If you're not wearing these until the run, grabbing these and just putting them on your head real quick and then, getting yourself settled, fixing them while you're running is what's going to be the most efficient way to finish your transition. And then, after that, your race is all done. So there's a few things I did not go over. Nutrition. Nutrition is very person specific. The sheet size race is short enough that you might not need one. Need a goo. When I say nutrition, I mean goos, stroop waffles, things that people take quick and easy, quick energy they'll take during the race. The sheet rise might be a short enough race, you might not necessarily need one. You might be somebody who does need one. Usually we suggest it for any kind of race that's going to be an hour plus. And in which case you might take a goo before you actually leave, and I have a few in here so I can kind of show you what I mean. In the other pocket. Nope, in the first pocket. So this is what I mean by nutrition, these goos. Having these set, so I personally take one before every race that I do. Even if it's a short sprint, that might be just 45 minutes. I'll take one of these before. I might not need to take another one again the entire race, but I'll take one first. And then during the race, if you expect you're going to be out on course for an hour or longer, usually a good idea to have one with you somehow. There's a few ways you can have these set up. One, you can have it just waiting for you in transition, and you can have it in your head, okay, I'm going to take it right after I'm done my bike ride, and I'll have it there. And then in that case, the same kind of idea, where you're going to grab it and go, and you can start to take it while you're running, partly because it's not fun to take without water. It gets, if your mouth is dry, it just kind of sticks there. So to prepare to take it at that water, or take it and then throw it out at that first water station so you can get a drink of water right afterward.
So you don't have to carry a water bottle when you're running.
You don't have to. No.
They do have it.
The other way you can have them set up is on your bike. If you think that when that hour mark hits, you're still going to be out riding your bike, there's a few different ways that you can get them onto your bicycle. One, a lot of bikes nowadays have what are called top tube bosses, which are just two bolts on the top of your bike. So you can put something like this on here, and then that way, I actually have one still in here from my last race. That way you can just keep them right in here. If it doesn't have that, there are these same things, but they come with Velcro, so they can wrap around your bike and they hold on that way. And then the third way is just taping it to the top of your bicycle. And that was the way I used for my first 5 years of triathlon. Was I would just use electrical tape and tape it to the top of the bike. That way I could just rip it off and go while I was riding. I usually suggest against trying to put them in your pockets. Reason being, when you're riding, getting something out of a pocket isn't always the easiest, especially in a tri-suit. In regular bike shorts and bike tops, the pockets are real big and easy to get your hand into. Tri-suit tops are real tight and it's difficult to get your hand into. So I usually suggest having it easy to access from the bicycle. Of course, if you don't have that option, feel free to put it in there. Just practice getting it out before you do your race. And then water, very important to have on your bike. Even if you think you're somebody who doesn't drink a lot of water, you're not going to need water. Take water, because while you're riding, you never know if the wind might affect your throat, things like that, just to get you uncomfortable. You want to make sure you have water throughout the race as well. One question I know people might want to know is, can you have headphones while you're running?
No.
And the answer is no for all triathlon events. From the smallest of sprints to Ironmans, you cannot have headphones in your ears. Biggest reasons is if you are going off course at any point in time, you need to be able to hear that volunteer yelling to you, say like, get back on course. And it's just really important that you can hear all of the surroundings at all times.
And also, the bike ride is not closed, so there are cars that will be coming. We'll have police obviously out there on the course, but you need to be able to be aware that there are cars coming up behind you.
Yep, and I usually tell people not to have their phones on them when they're riding. Now, some people like to use it as a GPS monitor. This course, there's going to be a lot of women racing. It's going to be very clear what the course is, and it's going to be clearly marked, and it's the routes online. So just have that memorized as opposed to having your phone as your GPS. Partly because all of the other notifications that come up are just going to be really distracting, and they'll be coming up on your watch. If you have a bike computer, they'll be coming up on there, and you want to have your mind just completely focused on the ride that you're doing, especially because you might be a strong rider, you might be around really inexperienced riders, or vice versa, and you just want to make sure that you're in the safest position possible.